The dust of Vareth Prime had not been disturbed in 3 million years. Now it swirled around the boots of dozens of researchers who picked through ruins that predated every known civilization in the galaxy. The archaeological site stretched for kilometers, filled with broken weapons, shattered structures, and the scattered remains of a battle so ancient that even legends had forgotten it. Daewon wiped sweat from his forehead and adjusted his scanner. The heat on this dead world was oppressive, and his environmental suit struggled to keep him cool. He was an engineer, not an archaeologist, but the Galactic Council had called in every specialist they could find after the discovery 3 months ago. Something on this planet was generating an energy signature that could be detected from 3 star systems away. He walked past a group of Velocian researchers who were carefully extracting fragments of metal from the ground. The Velocians were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and forearms that made them excellent at delicate work. They barely acknowledged him as he passed. Humans were still newcomers to the galactic community, only 200 years since first contact. Most of the older species treated them like children who had just learned to walk. The energy signature grew stronger as Daewon approached the center of the dig site. He could feel it now, a subtle vibration that made his teeth ache and his skin prickle. His scanner was going crazy, displaying readings that should not be possible. The device claimed the energy source was both incredibly ancient and somehow still active. Still waiting. Then he saw it. The armor stood in the middle of a crater, half buried in the dirt but still towering over everything around it. It was massive, easily 15 feet tall, made from a metal that seemed to drink in the light rather than reflect it. The surface was covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly, lines and symbols that seemed to shift and move when observed from the corner of the eye. Dr. Thalrin, the lead xenoarchaeologist, stood near the armor with several other scientists. The Velocian was old by his species standards, his skin darkened to deep purple with age. He was speaking rapidly to a holographic display, his forehands moving in complex gestures. Absolutely remarkable, Thalrin was saying as Daewon approached. The metal composition defies analysis. Our best equipment cannot even scratch the surface. The age dating puts it at minimum 3.2 million years old, possibly much older. Daewon stopped next to a Thaxian warrior named Brultok. The Thaxian was built like a tank, 8 feet of dense muscle and armored hide. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world and were known across the galaxy as fearsome fighters. Brultok was part of the security team assigned to protect the dig site. "What do you think, human?" Brultok asked, his voice like grinding rocks. "Your people have legends of ancient warriors, do they not?" Daewon nodded slowly. "We have stories about knights and samurai, warriors who wore armor and fought with honor. But nothing like this. This is something else entirely." A Velocian scientist named Kelmora approached them, her expression troubled. She was younger than Thalrin, her skin still pale blue, and she had befriended Daewon during his time at the dig. "They are planning another interface attempt," she said quietly. "The Council is sending a volunteer from the Krenth Dominion. They believe their neural fortitude will allow them to survive the connection." Daewon frowned. "Another attempt? How many have there been?" 17, Kelmora replied. 17 different species have tried to activate the armor or connect with its systems. 3 are still in medical comas. The others suffered severe neural feedback, temporary paralysis, or complete system shutdown. 1 nearly died. "Then why keep trying?" Daewon asked. Brultok laughed, a harsh sound. "Because power calls to the powerful, engineer. This armor was worn by the Titans, or so the legends say. Warriors who could face entire armies alone. Warriors who could survive in the vacuum of space and fight for days without rest. If someone could wear this armor now, they would be unstoppable." Daewon studied the armor more carefully. The patterns on its surface seemed to pulse with a faint light, responding to the proximity of living beings. "What if it's not meant to be worn?" he suggested. "What if it's just a monument or a warning?" Thalrin overheard and turned to him. "An interesting theory, young human, but incorrect. We have translated some of the inscriptions on the surrounding structures. This armor was worn in battle. The Titans were real, not myth. They served as peacekeepers in an age before the Council existed. They were the ones who stopped wars and protected the weak." "What happened to them?" Daewon asked. The dig site fell silent. Even the constant hum of equipment seemed to quiet. Thalrin exchanged glances with the other senior researchers before answering. "That is a question with no clear answer. The Titans vanished approximately 3 million years ago. Some records suggest they were betrayed, hunted by the very civilizations they protected. Others claim they simply left this galaxy. The truth is lost to time. A transport shuttle descended from orbit, kicking up clouds of ancient dust. The Krenth volunteer had arrived. Day-Wan watched as a delegation of council officials emerged, surrounding a tall figure in ceremonial robes. When the robes were removed, the volunteer was revealed to be a Krenth warrior scholar, their crystalline body gleaming in the harsh sunlight of Vareth Prime. The Krenth were beings of living crystal, their bodies formed from silicon-based compounds that made them incredibly resistant to damage. Their neural pathways were distributed throughout their entire form, making them nearly impossible to render unconscious. If any species could survive the armor's interface, the Krenth seemed like a perfect choice. Preparations took an hour. Medical teams positioned themselves around the armor. Energy dampeners were set up to contain any unexpected reactions. The Krenth warrior scholar, whose name was Velthera, meditated in silence while technicians attached monitoring equipment to her crystalline form. Finally, Velthera approached the armor. The dig site held its breath. Every researcher, every guard, every technician stopped what they were doing to watch. Day-Wan found himself gripping his scanner so hard that his knuckles turned white. Velthera placed both hands on the armor's chest plate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the patterns on the armor blazed with brilliant light. Energy surged through Velthera's body, visible as lightning arcing through her crystalline structure. She made no sound, but her body began to vibrate at a frequency that made everyone nearby stumble backward. 3 seconds. That was how long Velthera lasted. Her body suddenly went dark, all the light in her crystalline structure extinguishing like a candle in a storm. She collapsed and the medical teams rushed forward. The armor's patterns faded back to their subtle glow as if nothing had happened. Day-Wan helped Kelmora to her feet. The energy surge had knocked several people down. "Is she alive?" he asked. "Her vital signs are stable," Kelmora said, checking her medical scanner. "But she is unconscious. Her neural pathways are in chaos. It will take days, maybe weeks, for her to recover fully." Thalarin stood before the armor, forearms hanging limp at his sides. The old scientist looked defeated. 18 attempts. 18 failures. Perhaps this armor was meant to remain silent forever. That night, Day-Wan could not sleep. He lay in his bunk at the temporary research station and stared at the ceiling. The image of the armor dominated his thoughts. There was something about it that called to him, something that made his engineer's mind race with possibilities. He thought about the patterns on the armor's surface. They were not decorative. They were functional, he was certain of it. They were part of a system, a complex machine that was trying to communicate. Every species that had attempted to interface had approached it the same way, trying to impose their will on the armor, trying to force it to obey. But what if that was wrong? What if the armor was looking for something specific? What if it was searching for someone who could meet it halfway? Someone who could adapt to its requirements rather than forcing it to adapt to theirs? Day-Wan sat up in his bunk. His heart was racing. He knew he should ignore the thought, should go back to sleep and let the senior researchers handle the problem. He was just an engineer. He had no business interfering with the xenoarchaeological research, but the thought would not leave him alone. The armor was waiting for something, and Day-Wan had to know what. 3 nights later, Day-Wan found himself sneaking through the darkened dig site with a portable scanner and a handful of equipment he had borrowed without asking. The moons of Vareth Prime cast strange shadows across the ancient ruins, and every sound made him jump. What he was doing violated at least 6 council regulations and could get him expelled from the research team. He did not care anymore. The armor haunted his dreams. Every night he saw the patterns on its surface, watched them pulse and shift. His engineering background screamed at him that those patterns were a language, a code that could be deciphered if someone just looked at them correctly. The armor stood alone in the crater, the security systems temporarily disabled for maintenance. Day-Wan had checked the schedule carefully. He had exactly 2 hours before the night patrol made their next round. It was not much time, but it would have to be enough. He set up his equipment in a circle around the armor and began his scans. The portable scanner was more sophisticated than the standard models, capable of detecting energy patterns across 17 different spectrums. Day-Wan had modified it himself, adding features that were technically illegal but incredibly useful. The results made his breath catch. The armor was not dormant. It was not inactive. It was constantly broadcasting, sending out pulses of energy in patterns that repeated every 47 seconds. The patterns were complex, layered, containing information in a format that no known species used. But Daewon recognized the underlying structure. It was similar to adaptive algorithms used in advanced AI systems. The armor was searching, testing, looking for something that matched specific criteria. Every time someone touched it, the armor ran a compatibility check. Every time it found the species lacking. He pulled up the medical records from all 18 interface attempts. Council privacy laws would have his head if anyone found out. But Kelmora had left her access codes on a shared terminal. Daewon felt guilty about the invasion of privacy, but his need to understand outweighed his conscience. The pattern became clear. Every species that had attempted the interface had failed at the exact same point. The armor would begin its synchronization process, flooding the volunteer's nervous system with information and energy. The volunteer's body would attempt to adapt, to accept the changes the armor demanded, and then inevitably, their biological safety systems would trigger, shutting down neural pathways to prevent catastrophic damage. It was a survival mechanism. Every spacefaring species had evolved defenses against things that could harm their nervous systems. Pain limits, shock responses, automatic shutdowns. These defenses kept them alive in dangerous situations. But those same defenses made it impossible for them to accept what the armor required. The armor needed someone whose body would not shut down. Someone who could endure the transformation process long enough for synchronization to complete. Someone whose biology was stubborn enough, adaptable enough, to survive changes that would kill most beings. Daewon was so absorbed in his analysis that he did not hear Kelmora approach until she spoke. "You should not be here." He jumped, nearly dropping his scanner. The Volosian scientist stood at the edge of the crater, her forearms crossed. Her expression was difficult to read in the moonlight, but her voice carried both anger and concern. "I can explain," Daewon began. "You are conducting unauthorized research on a restricted artifact." Kelmora interrupted. "You have accessed classified medical records. You have disabled security protocols. Do you understand the consequences if you are caught?" Daewon met her eyes. "I understand, but I also understand what this armor is doing, and nobody else seems to be seeing it. Everyone is approaching this wrong." Kelmora was silent for a long moment. Then she descended into the crater, moving with the grace of her species. "Show me." For the next 20 minutes, Daewon explained his findings. He showed her the energy patterns, the compatibility algorithms, the medical data that revealed the exact point of failure. Kelmora listened without interrupting, her scientific mind absorbing the information. "If you are correct," she said slowly, "then the armor is not looking for a specific species. It is looking for specific biological traits. Adaptability, resilience, the ability to endure transformation without triggering safety shutdowns." "Exactly," Daewon confirmed. The Titans were not a single species. They were individuals from various races who possessed these traits. The armor found them and made them into something more. "But no modern species has these traits," Kelmora said. "We have evolved beyond such primitive responses. We have medical technology, genetic engineering, civilized biology. We do not need to endure suffering when we can simply avoid it." Daewon nodded, "Which is exactly why nobody can wear the armor." The implications hung in the air between them. Then Kelmora noticed something on Daewon's scanner display. "What is that data set?" Daewon hesitated. "Human biological parameters. Pain tolerance, adaptive response time, neural plasticity. I was just curious how we would compare to the other species who attempted the interface." Kelmora took the scanner from his hands and studied the data. Her expression shifted from curiosity to shock to something that might have been horror. "Your species. Your pain tolerance is 3 times higher than the galactic average. Your neural plasticity is off the charts. Your bodies do not have the same safety limits as other species." "Earth was not a kind world," Daewon said quietly. "We had to adapt or die. Our evolution was violent, brutal. We learned to endure because we had no choice." "You are thinking of attempting the interface yourself," Kelmora said. It was not a question. Before Daewon could answer, alarms began to shriek across the dig site. Emergency lighting blazed to life, turning night into harsh day. Kelmora's communicator crackled with panicked voices. Daewon grabbed his equipment, but it was already too late to hide what he had been doing. Except the alarms were not about him. They were about the 3 ships dropping out of orbit with weapons hot and shields active. Pirates. Brultak's voice thundered across the communication network. All personnel to emergency shelters. We are under attack! I repeat, we are under attack. The first plasma bolt struck the research station, vaporizing an entire wing in an instant. Researchers scattered in every direction, screaming. The security team returned fire, but they were badly outnumbered and outgunned. More ships were descending, smaller craft that darted through the air like predatory insects. Dewan and Kelmora ran for cover as the ground around them exploded. One of the pirate ships was heading directly for the crater, for the armor. Of course they were. Someone had leaked information about the discovery. The Breach Syndicate, the most ruthless pirate organization in this sector, had come to claim their prize. The pirate ship landed at the crater's edge. Armed figures poured out, their weapons trained on anyone who moved. They wore mismatched armor and carried equipment looted from a dozen different civilizations. At their center was a massive being in powered battle armor, clearly the leader. The council thinks they can keep secrets. The leader's voice boomed through external speakers. They think they can hoard power while the rest of us struggle. Not anymore. The armor belongs to the Syndicate now. Brultak charged from behind a ruined wall, roaring a challenge. The Thaxian warrior moved with incredible speed for someone his size, his personal shield absorbing the first barrage of shots. He reached the nearest pirate and sent the figure flying with a single punch, but there were too many. The pirates surrounded Brultak, and even his incredible strength could not overcome their numbers. A plasma bolt caught him in the leg, then another in the chest. The Thaxian went down hard, his shield flickering out. The pirate leader approached the armor, pulling out industrial cutting equipment. If we cannot wear it, we will cut it into pieces and sell them. The metal alone will make us rich. Dewan watched from behind a collapsed pillar. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. This was insane. He was an engineer, not a fighter. He had no combat training, no weapons, no chance of making a difference. But he looked at Brultak bleeding on the ground. He looked at Kelmora hiding nearby, her forearms wrapped around herself in fear. He looked at the other researchers, good people who had done nothing to deserve this violence. And he looked at the armor that was searching for someone who could endure, someone who could adapt, someone stubborn enough to survive what should be impossible, someone human. Dewan stood up. Kelmora saw him and her eyes went wide. She reached for him, trying to pull him back to safety, but he was already moving. He walked into the crater with his hands raised, making himself visible to the pirates. "Wait," he shouted. "Do not damage the armor. I can activate it." The pirate leader turned, weapons tracking Dewan's movement. "Who is this fool?" "I am the human engineer assigned to this dig," Dewan said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I have been studying the armor. I know how it works. If you damage it, you will destroy its value. Let me activate it properly." The pirate leader laughed. 18 species have tried and failed. What makes you think you can succeed? Dewan stopped in front of the armor. He could feel its energy now, stronger than ever, as if it sensed what was about to happen. "Because I am human, and humans do not know when to quit." The armor recognized Dewan's touch instantly. The patterns on its surface blazed with light so bright that everyone in the crater had to look away. Energy poured into his body through the point of contact, flooding his nervous system with information that no human mind was designed to process. Pain was too simple a word for what Dewan experienced. It was as if every nerve ending in his body was being rewritten, every synapse in his brain remapped. The armor was not asking permission. It was not being gentle. It was transforming him at a cellular level, forcing his biology to meet its requirements. Any other species would have died in the first second. Their safety systems would have triggered, their bodies shutting down to protect themselves from catastrophic damage. But humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them in 1,000 different ways. Humans had learned to push past pain, to function when they should have collapsed, to survive when survival seemed impossible. Dewan did not shut down. He endured. Information flooded his mind. He saw battles that had taken place millions of years ago. He saw beings from dozens of species wearing armor like this, fighting against threats that could destroy entire civilizations. He saw the Titans not as myths, but as real people who had chosen to bear an impossible burden. The armor showed him its purpose. It was not just a weapon or a tool. It was a legacy, a responsibility passed down through the ages. The Titans had protected the weak and stopped those who would conquer. They had stood alone against armies because someone had to stand, and they were the only ones strong enough to do it. And then the armor showed him what it required. Total commitment, complete trust. The armor would become part of him, stored within his cells, ready to manifest at will. He would be stronger, faster, more durable than any human had a right to be. But he would also carry the weight of every Titan who had come before him. Every battle they had fought. Every sacrifice they had made. The armor asked if he accepted. Daewon had no breath to speak with, no voice to answer. But his heart answered for him. His stubborn human heart that refused to give up, that had carried him through the pain and the transformation. His answer was yes. The synchronization completed in 47 seconds, exactly as the armor's algorithms had predicted. The light faded. The energy pulses stopped. And Daewon stood in the crater at his full height of 15 feet, encased in armor that moved like his own skin. The pirates had been stunned into silence. Now they recovered and panic replaced shock. The leader raised his weapon and fired, joined instantly by dozens of others. Plasma bolts that could melt through starship hulls struck the armor and dissipated harmlessly. Daewon looked down at his armored hands. He flexed his fingers and watched the metal respond perfectly. No delay, no resistance. He could feel everything through the armor as if it were his natural skin. The texture of the ground beneath his feet, the temperature of the air, the vibrations of the pirate's weapons fire. But more than that, he could sense things no unaugmented human could detect. He could perceive electromagnetic fields, hear radio communications, see in spectrums of light that had no name. The world had become larger, richer, more complex, and he understood all of it instantly because the armor fed him information, and his enhanced brain processed it without effort. One of the pirates broke ranks and ran. Daewon moved without thinking. His armored legs carried him 30 meters in a single leap that should have shattered his bones, but instead felt as natural as walking. He landed in front of the fleeing pirate, and the impact sent shockwaves through the ground. "Nobody else gets hurt," Daewon said. His voice emerged from the armor, amplified and strange, but still recognizably his. "Leave now. Tell your syndicate that Verith Prime is under protection." The pirate leader recovered enough to laugh, though it sounded forced. "You think wearing ancient armor makes you invincible? You are 1 against 50. We have explosives, heavy weapons, orbital support. Surrender the armor and you can live." Daewon turned to face the leader. The armor's tactical systems were already analyzing threats, calculating trajectories, identifying weak points in the pirate's formation. Information appeared in his vision, overlays that showed him exactly how to disable every threat without killing anyone. "I am giving you one chance," Daewon said. "Take it." The pirate leader's response was to trigger a plasma grenade and throw it directly at Daewon. The explosive detonated in a ball of superheated gas that would have vaporized an unprotected human. The armor absorbed the blast without even scorching. That was when the pirates realized their mistake. That was when they understood what they were truly facing. Not a human in armor, a Titan reborn. Daewon moved. His armored fist struck the ground and the shockwave knocked a dozen pirates off their feet. He leaped again, crossing the crater in a blur of motion, and swept 3 pirates aside with one arm. Their armor crumpled like paper. He grabbed a pirate's plasma rifle and crushed it into scrap metal with casual strength. The pirates opened fire with everything they had: heavy weapons, explosives, experimental energy weapons. The armor's shields activated automatically, a shimmering barrier that absorbed kinetic impacts and dispersed energy blasts. Daewon walked through the barrage like a man walking through rain. He reached the group of pirates surrounding the fallen Brultok and scattered them with a gesture. The armor's systems allowed him to generate localized electromagnetic pulses that overloaded their equipment. Weapons sparked and died. Communication devices went silent. Even their ship systems began to fail as Daewon's presence disrupted their electronics. The pirate leader fired a shoulder-mounted rocket launcher at point-blank range. The rocket struck Daewon's chest and exploded with enough force to crack stone. The armor did not even shift. Daewon grabbed the launcher out of the pirate's hands and threw it into the crater wall hard enough to embed it in the rock. "I said leave," Daewon repeated. The fight went out of the pirates all at once. They had come expecting easy prey, helpless researchers who could not defend themselves. Instead, they had found something from their worst nightmares, an unstoppable warrior in armor that turned their most powerful weapons into annoyances. They ran, The pirate leader tried to maintain some dignity, backing away slowly and shouting threats about reinforcements and revenge. But even he could not maintain the facade. When Daewon took a single step in his direction, the leader turned and sprinted for his ship with the others. The pirate vessels lifted off in panic, their engines straining. One ship tried to fire a parting shot at the research station. Daewon reached out with the armor's systems and felt the ship's power distribution, its shield frequencies, its structural weak points. He did not need to move. The armor extended an energy field that seized the ship and forced it down, grinding it into the dirt without destroying it. The other ships fled into orbit and jumped to hyperspace, so quickly that their drives left scorch marks on the upper atmosphere. Silence returned to Vareth Prime. Daewon stood in the center of the crater, surrounded by scattered equipment and scorched ground. He could feel the researchers watching him from their hiding places, could sense their fear and awe in equal measure. Kelmora emerged first. The Velosian scientist approached slowly, her forearms held in a gesture of peace. Daewon, are you still in there? He looked down at her, and the armor's tactical systems immediately identified her as a non-threat. He forced them to quiet. I am still me. The armor did not replace me. It just made me more. You synchronized in less than a minute, Kelmora said, wonder in her voice. 18 species tried and failed. But a human succeeded on the first attempt. Other researchers began to emerge from cover. Dr. Thalrin approached with several other senior scientists, their expressions shifting between fascination and fear. Medical teams rushed to help Brultak, whose wounds were serious but not fatal thanks to Daewon's intervention. Daewon tried to remove the armor and felt it respond instantly. The metal flowed and contracted, pulling back from his skin. But it did not disappear. It retreated into his body, stored somehow within his cellular structure in a way that his engineering mind could not quite comprehend. He stood in the crater in his normal form, 5 feet 9 inches tall, looking perfectly human. How did you do that? Thalrin asked. The synchronization should have killed you. We monitored the energy levels. They were identical to the previous attempts. What made you different? Daewon looked at his hands, still feeling the echo of the armor's presence. I am human. We evolved on a world where everything wanted us dead. We learned to adapt or perish. Our bodies do not give up easily. Our minds do not accept defeat. The armor needed someone stubborn enough to survive the bonding process. It needed someone who would not quit no matter how much it hurt. The Titans, Thalrin breathed. They were not superhuman beings. They were simply beings who refused to break. Daewon nodded. The armor does not create Titans. It finds them. Brultak groaned as the medical team stabilized him. The Thaxian warrior looked at Daewon with newfound respect. You saved my life, human. I will not forget that debt. The council ships arrived within 30 hours. They came in force, a battle group of 20 vessels that surrounded Vareth Prime like a cage. Daewon watched them from the research station's observation deck, feeling the armor stir within him. It recognized military formations, tactical positioning, threat assessment, the knowledge of ancient warriors mixed with his own thoughts, until he could not tell where his mind ended and the armor's legacy began. Commander Vestal of the Council Guard led the delegation that descended to the surface. The Vorkan commander was tall and imposing, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming with official insignia. He brought with him an entire platoon of soldiers, scientists, and legal officials. They treated the research station like a crime scene, cordoning off areas and questioning everyone about what had happened. Daewon was placed under what they called protective custody. It was a polite term for imprisonment. They confined him to a reinforced chamber and posted guards at every entrance. The guards were professional and courteous, but their weapons never left their hands. They feared him even though he had done nothing to threaten them. Kelmora was one of the few people allowed to visit. She came with medical equipment and concern in her large eyes. They want to run tests, she said quietly. Blood samples, neural scans, genetic analysis. They want to understand how you survived the synchronization. I'm not a laboratory specimen, Daewon replied, sitting on the edge of the narrow bed that was the only furniture in his cell. I know, but the council is frightened. You must understand. There has not been a Titan in recorded history. The armor was supposed to be a relic, a curiosity to study. Nobody expected it to activate. Nobody expected a human to succeed where every other species failed. So they want to dissect me and figure out what makes humans special? Kelmora hesitated. Some do. Others want the armor destroyed. There is a faction in the council that believes individual beings should not possess such power. They remember the old stories about the Titans, about how they were feared as much as respected. Daewon stood and walked to the reinforced window. He could see the dig site from here, the crater where the armor had stood for millions of years. What do you believe, Kelmora? The Voloshian was quiet for a long moment. I believe you saved lives. I believe you acted with honor when faced with an impossible choice. But I also believe the galaxy is not ready for what you represent. Change frightens people. Power frightens people. You are both. Another visitor came the next day, one that surprised Daewon. She was human, tall and scholarly, with dark hair tied back in a practical braid. She introduced herself as Hana, a linguist who had been working on translating the Titan archives discovered at various sites across the galaxy. I pulled some strings to get access to you, Hana said, sitting across from Daewon in the small meeting room they had been given. 2 guards stood by the door watching but not interfering. Your bonding with the armor has implications far beyond what the council realizes. Explain, Daewon said. Hana pulled out a data tablet and displayed several images of ancient text. I have been translating Titan records for 3 years. Most of it is fragmentary, damaged by time. But I have found references to what they called the choosing. The armor does not bond randomly. It evaluates candidates based on specific criteria. Adaptability, Daewon said. The ability to endure transformation. That is part of it. But there is more. The Titans were not conquerors or warlords. They were protectors who operated by a strict code. The armor evaluates not just physical capability but also character. It looks for those who would use power to defend rather than dominate. Daewon leaned forward. How do you know this? Because I have been piecing together the true history of the Titans, and it is not what the Council teaches. The official story is that the Titans vanished mysteriously. The truth is darker. They were hunted. Hana's words hung in the air like a threat. She continued. 3 million years ago, the Titans numbered in the hundreds. They came from different species, different worlds, but they shared the same purpose. They prevented wars, stopped invasions, protected developing civilizations. For thousands of years, they maintained peace. What changed? Daewon asked. They became too powerful, too independent. The early galactic governments feared them. How do you control warriors who answer to no authority but their own conscience? How do you wage war when Titans stand between you and your enemies? So the governments formed an alliance. They hunted the Titans systematically, using overwhelming force and treachery. The Titans could defeat armies, Daewon said. How were they killed? Because they were protectors, not killers. The Alliance attacked civilians, forced the Titans to choose between defending the helpless and defending themselves. One by one, the Titans fell. The last of them hid their armors across the galaxy and programmed them to wait for the day when worthy successors emerged. Daewon felt the armor stir within him, responding to emotions he could barely name. Anger at the betrayal, sorrow for the fallen, determination to honor their sacrifice. The Council knows this history. The senior members do. It is classified information, hidden in archives that few can access. They do not want the public to know that their ancestors murdered the greatest protectors the galaxy had ever seen. Hana met his eyes. Your bonding with the armor has terrified them because it means the age of Titans could return. And they remember what happened last time. Before Daewon could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The guards at the door received urgent communications through their earpieces. One of them looked at Daewon with barely concealed fear. We are moving you to a secure location. Do not resist. What is happening? Hana demanded. That is classified, the guard replied. But Daewon could feel what was happening. The armor within him sensed the arrival of something massive, something powerful. He closed his eyes and extended his awareness, using the armor's enhanced perception. There, at the edge of the system, dropping out of hyperspace with weapons charging, a Varax world ship. The Varax Empire was one of the great military powers of the galaxy, a civilization built on conquest and strength. Their world ships were mobile fortresses, each one 300 kilometers long and capable of cracking planets. They came when diplomacy failed, when only overwhelming force remained. Commander Veshtal's voice echoed through the station's communication system. All personnel, this is not a drill. We are facing a hostile incursion. The Vrax have issued an ultimatum. They demand we surrender the human wearing the Titan armor within 1 hour, or they will destroy this entire facility and everyone in it. Panic erupted throughout the station. Researchers ran for evacuation shuttles. Scientists frantically packed data. The council ships moved into defensive positions, but everyone could see the futility. 6 light cruisers against a world ship was not a battle. It was a massacre. Hana grabbed Daewon's arm. They have been watching. The pirates must have sold the information to them. The Vraks want the armor for themselves. Daewon pulled away from the guards and ran to the observation deck. He could see the world ship now, a dark mass against the stars that blotted out constellations with its bulk. Smaller ships poured from its launch bays like insects, hundreds of them more firepower than most planetary defense forces possessed. Kelmora found him there, her forearms trembling. The council is debating whether to surrender you or evacuate and let the Vraks have the planet. They are politicians. They will choose the path that lets them survive. How long until the ultimatum expires? Daewon asked. 37 minutes, Kelmora said. Then we need to evacuate everyone in 36 minutes. What are you planning? Hana asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. Daewon looked at his hands, feeling the armor's presence just beneath his skin. The Vraks want me? They can have me. But not as a prisoner, as a Titan. Commander Veshital appeared on the observation deck with a squad of soldiers. You will remain in custody. The council will handle negotiations. Your council is about to sell me to avoid a fight, Daewon said. But it will not matter. The Vraks will take me and then they will destroy this station anyway because they do not leave witnesses. Everyone here will die. That is speculation, Veshital replied, but his tone lacked conviction. It is tactical reality, Daewon countered. I have access to military knowledge from warriors who fought for millions of years. The Vraks Warmaster will not accept anything less than total victory. Giving them the armor will only delay the attack. Hana stepped forward. I have been studying the Titan combat protocols. I know what the armor is capable of when fully activated. If Daewon engages the world ship, he can buy time for everyone to evacuate. One being against a world ship, Veshital laughed bitterly. That is suicide. No, Daewon said quietly. That is what Titans do. We stand between the helpless and the threat. We endure what others cannot. We fight when fighting seems impossible. That is why the armor chose me. Kelmora's hands shook as she worked her data tablet. The full combat protocols require activation codes. Without them, you only have access to basic functions. Against a world ship, you would need everything the armor can provide. The evacuation began immediately. Researchers and support staff crowded into every available shuttle, while the council ships prepared for what would likely be their last battle. Commander Veshital had stopped trying to restrain Daewon. Even the Vorkan commander could see that normal authority meant nothing in the face of what was coming. Hana transferred the activation codes to a secure device. Her hands shook as she handed it to Daewon. These codes will unlock the armor's full capabilities: energy weapons, shield projection, flight systems, tactical networks, everything the Titans use to fight wars across the galaxy. But once you activate them, there is no going back. Daewon took the device. It was small, almost insignificant in his palm, something so tiny that would change him forever. Will it hurt? Yes, Hana said simply. The initial bonding was just the beginning. Full synchronization means the armor will integrate completely with your nervous system, your brain, your very thoughts. You will be able to do incredible things, but you may lose yourself in the process. Kelmora approached with a medical injector. This will help manage the pain during activation. It is the strongest compound we have that will not interfere with neural processes. Daewon accepted the injection, though he doubted it would make much difference. The initial bonding had hurt worse than anything he had ever experienced, and that was only partial synchronization. He tried not to think about what complete integration would feel like. The Vraks are hailing us, one of the communication officers called out. Warmaster Kethros wants to speak with whoever is in command. The view screen activated, showing the bridge of the Vraks world ship. Warmaster Kethros was exactly what Daewon expected. Massive, armored, covered in scars that spoke of countless battles. The Vraks were a warrior species, evolved on a hostile world where only the strong survived. They respected strength above all else. I am Warmaster Kethros of the Vraks Third Fleet, the alien commander announced. You have 30 minutes remaining to surrender the human wearing the Titan armor. Comply and your deaths will be swift. Resist and we will take our time with you. Commander Veshtal stepped forward. This is a Council research station. We are protected by galactic treaty. Your attack is illegal. Kethros laughed, a harsh sound. Treaties are for the weak. The Vrax Empire takes what it wants. The human will be brought before our scientists. The armor will be studied, replicated, and used to expand our dominion. This is inevitable. You can only choose whether you die quickly or slowly. Daewon pushed past Veshtal to stand before the view screen. The War Master's eyes locked onto him, and something like hunger crossed the alien's face. I am the human you want. I wear the Titan armor. So small, Kethros observed. And yet the reports say you scattered an entire pirate raiding party. Show me. Manifest the armor. Daewon obliged. He called the armor forth, and it flowed across his body like liquid metal, expanding him to his full 15-foot height. The patterns on its surface glowed with power barely contained. Even through the view screen, he could see the Vrax bridge crew shift nervously. Impressive, Kethros admitted, but insufficient. You are one. We are thousands. Our world ship carries enough firepower to sterilize continents. You cannot win. Surrender, and I give my word that the research station will be spared. Your word means nothing, Daewon replied. The Vrax do not spare witnesses. Everyone here knows too much about the armor. You will kill them regardless. The War Master's expression confirmed what everyone already suspected. Then they die either way. At least surrendering gives them a chance. Fighting guarantees their death. Or I could come to you, Daewon said. Face you in open space. Ship to ship. Titan to War Master. If I win, you leave this system and never return. If you win, you get the armor and everyone else goes free. Kethros considered this. The Vrax valued personal combat, duels of honor and strength. You would challenge me to single combat? You must understand I have killed Titans before. Your armor is not unique. 3 million years ago, my ancestors hunted the last of your kind. The revelation sent shock through the observation deck. The Vrax had been part of the alliance that destroyed the Titans. Their War Master carried the knowledge of how to kill armored warriors. Then you know what you are facing, Daewon replied. Do you accept my challenge, or are you afraid? The insult worked. Kethros's face darkened with rage. You dare question my courage? Very well, human, I accept. But we fight in open space where there is nowhere to hide. And when I defeat you, I will take my time killing the others as punishment for your arrogance. The view screen went dark. Hana grabbed Daewon's arm. Are you insane? He just admitted his species knows how to kill Titans, which is why I need to activate the full protocols now, Daewon said. He held up the device with the activation codes. If I am going to fight a War Master who has killed armored warriors before, I need every advantage the armor can give me. Kelmora worked quickly, setting up a medical monitoring station. I will track your vitals during activation. If your body begins to fail, I can attempt emergency intervention. That will not work, Hana said quietly. If the synchronization fails, he dies. There is no stopping the process once it begins. Daewon looked at the assembled group. Researchers and soldiers, scientists and guards. Dozens of people who had minutes ago been strangers but now looked at him with desperate hope. They needed him to be their shield, their protector. They needed a Titan. He activated the codes. The armor responded instantly. Energy exploded through his body, but this time it did not stop at his nervous system. It reached into his brain, his memories, his very consciousness. The armor was not just integrating with his biology. It was merging with his mind. Pain became irrelevant. His human body still felt it, but that body was only part of what he was becoming. The armor's memories flooded into him. Thousands of battles, millions of tactical scenarios. The accumulated knowledge of every Titan who had ever worn this armor. He saw wars fought across the galaxy. Civilizations saved, threats eliminated. He felt the weight of responsibility that came with this power. The Titans had not been soldiers following orders. They had been individuals who chose to stand between the innocent and the threat, knowing that choice would likely kill them. They had been protectors who paid in blood and pain for every life they saved. New systems activated within the armor. Energy weapons materialized, powered by the armor's internal reactor. Shield generators came online, capable of withstanding attacks that would destroy starships. Flight systems engaged, preparing to carry him into the vacuum of space where no human had any right to survive. The synchronization completed in 93 seconds. When Daewon opened his eyes, he was something more than human, but not quite something else. The armor was no longer separate from him. It was him, he was it. The line between flesh and metal had blurred beyond recognition. He could see the world ship clearly now, could perceive its energy distribution, its shield frequencies, its weapons arrays. The armor's tactical systems provided him with 17 different attack vectors and calculated the probability of success for each one. His human mind should have been overwhelmed by the information. Instead, he processed it all effortlessly. "It is time," he said, and his voice carried harmonics that had not been there before. Kelmora stared at her medical monitors in disbelief. "Your neural activity is off every scale. Your body temperature has increased by 15 degrees. Your heart rate is triple normal. You should be dead or unconscious. Instead, you are functioning at a level no recorded species can achieve." "Because I am human," Day One replied, "and humans do not know our limits until we exceed them." He walked to the airlock. The armor's systems activated environmental shielding, life support, and radiation protection. He did not need a ship. The armor would carry him through space, protect him from the void, allow him to function in an environment that would kill an unprotected human in seconds. The airlock opened. Day One stepped into vacuum. Energy wings materialized from his back, brilliant constructs of controlled power that generated propulsion without mass. He accelerated, faster than any fighter, faster than most ships. The research station fell away behind him as he raced toward the world ship. Kethros met him halfway, standing on the hull of a command shuttle surrounded by dozens of escort fighters. The War Master wore battle armor that was impressive by any standard, covered in weapons and honor marks. But it was not Titan armor. It was merely advanced technology, not a legacy forged across millions of years. "You came," Kethros said through an open communication channel. "I respect that. You could have fled. Instead, you chose to face me. That is warrior's honor." "I did not come for honor," Day One replied. "I came to protect people who cannot protect themselves. That is what Titans do. Then die like a Titan." Kethros raised his arm and fired a weapon that cracked space itself, a reality-warping cannon that should have erased Day One from existence. The armor's shields absorbed the blast, not deflected, not resisted, absorbed. The energy that should have killed him was converted and stored, adding to the armor's power reserves. Titan technology did not just protect against attacks. It learned from them, adapted to them, turned them into advantages.